Um, so your professional world probably would not have evolved the way it has had it not been for your music world. I'm assuming. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that it was time and place for a lot of things, like,
Yeah.
ending up in the Bay Area after I graduated college and working, pretty normal job as a receptionist at, some random company, and then being around when Lookout was growing so much and, kind of raising my hand and saying, "You guys look like you need some help and you don't really know how to do office things."
Right.
Like, that was kinda one of my first, like, "Let's clean." It was really gross. Number 2, "Let's organize, let's put some files away, let's set up a system." And
Maybe
then
get
3,
a
"Let's start to."
database.
Yeah. They had a database, but it was like, at that time, it was when they were shipping like 50,000 records a week, and just invoices were piling up in the
Yeah.
corner, and,
Nobody was
just
dealing
and it
with.
wasn't the bills were being paid, but it was just like the clutter was, chaotic in a very small room, and they were shipping out, mail order on top
So
of it.
you were working somewhere else, and then you said, "Hey,
Kind of like they knew they had to hire someone, and I was like, "Well, I kind of know how to do
a bunch of this
stuff."
stuff." Yeah.
And I had grown up in a sort of around. My dad was a kind of a media guy, um, and so I had been in that, I knew about, like, relationships with, newspapers and things like that, and so I took on that kind of PR, marketing, radio promotion, kind of Jane of all trades type of job, that I think a lot of independent labels had then, right? Promo. And, and, that got me into, when with the 90s and, records selling so much and, there being a real business and, lots of artists that had fans, like, that was what we did. So it was a really fortuitous time, but not being skilled, experienced business people, didn't really know how to be measured in that growth and, anticipate the likelihood of a decline and, and the internet, emerging and, file sharing and all of those things. Um, that, I kind of weathered that and the company weathered that. And then I also started doing management and, ended up moving to New York. And, as we sort of wound down the label, I was kind of taking on a new phase and then got a job at a company called eMusic, which, was a competitor to iTunes
I
and with the
remember
download.
them well.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
it was a cool, you know, company at that time.
I think I was one of the earlier labels to be with eMusic.
Probably, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it was very independent focused, and so that mapped to a lot of my relationships and my experience, and then I learned what it was like to work in a bigger company with different kinds of, departments and, um, things like that, and I stayed there for quite a while, but then when streaming started and we didn't really have a streaming offer, and building one and, putting that out there was, seemed it's funny to look back on, like, the tech development required to do that. That's probably, like, plug and play right now. Like, you could probably find if you had the licenses and you had customers, you could probably spin up a streaming platform now that would be not, a heavy lift, but that was an inconceivable investment at the time at that company. And
You
I
just
so I ended up working for about a year at Rhapsody, now Napster, which was a streaming company, but very small, and just pivoted from there over the next couple of years, and then landed here at downtown in 2017. So it's been almost 8 years that I've been here in 3 different jobs, 4 technically, but 3 kinda different areas of what we do here, which has been incredible, in lots of ways to kind of be in a place of of, change, but within one organization, um, for all these years has been pretty awesome.